This is 2-1, understand integers. This should be a fairly easier topic. We're dealing with positive and negative numbers. So this one should be going by pretty quickly. So let's write down our title, 2-1. Understand integers. Our goal is I can use positive and negative integers. So 2-1, understand integers. I can use positive and negative integers. Let's start off with some definitions. Well, one of the words we have here, integers, we might need to define. So let's put a definition for integers. These are counting numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way up, just the numbers that you count. So counting numbers. Their opposites, and we're going to get into what that means, but you can sort of imagine right now. Opposites. That's how I remember how to. And 0. So all the numbers, 1, 2, 3, all into infinity, goes on forever, and their opposites, which also goes on forever, and then also 0. So those are integers. So just think of numbers. The next one we need to define is opposites. And to understand what opposites are, you need to sort of think of a number line, right? So if I've got 8, the opposite of 8 would be -8. So I'm looking at the number line and I'm going 8 spaces to the left instead of to the right. So for the definition, I'm just gonna put negative numbers because that's how I grew up. That's how I grew up learning this, is that you have positive numbers and you have negative numbers. Here they call them the number, right? The integer, the number, and then the opposite of that number. Actually, the opposite of a positive number would be a negative number. The opposite of a positive number would be a negative number would be a positive number. Sorry, it's not just negative numbers. It's negative numbers and positive numbers. It's just the it's better to give you a visual. So let me draw a number line real quick. So let's put 0 in the middle. Let's just go to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we'll go to -5 over here. 1, -1, -2, -3, -4, -5. So if I've got 3, the opposite of 3 would be 3 spaces from 0. So because this is 3 spaces. 1, 2, 3. The opposite of 3 would be 3 spaces from 0 going to left. 1, 2, 3. This is -3. This is the opposite. So the opposite of +3 is -3. The opposite of -3 is +3. It's just the same distance from 0 on either side. I know that was kind of confusing, but just think of the opposite of -3 is +3. The opposite of +3 is -3. Okay? So if we go ahead and do some examples for that specific lesson there, let's see if we can understand this. So if I said we wanted to find the opposite of 6, the opposite, oops, you cannot see, I gotta move up. The opposite of 6 is -6. Just bear with me. I know this seems really simple because it kind of is. The opposite of -6 is 6. And here comes the tricky part, because you will see this, and I know you will have questions about this, so please pay attention. All right, so the way that they have it in this book, they represent the opposite of -6 in a way that's that might confuse you, right? So if I'm looking at the opposite of -6, I don't. They will also put it as. I'm doing this wrong. The -6, they will put it as a -6. And I still try to wrap my brain around that, but I think it's because it goes the opposite of -6. Either way, this right here, circle it, is the same thing as just saying +6. I know. It's confusing. So the opposite of -6 is 6. So if you want to do a +6, if you want to do a +6 or a positive number, you can write it as this, just like we normally write it, just a regular number. Or another way, like an equivalent, we talk about equivalent ratios or equivalent fractions. Another way to write a positive integer is to put a number with a negative in front of it, in parentheses, and then another negative in front of it. That means +6. Okay, so I'm going to do it again. We've got the opposite of -10. If you read it that way, then it makes sense. Well, the opposite of -10 is 10. All right, so I'm gonna put like an arrow here. I'm gonna have you. This literally means the opposite of -10. That's what you would say. The opposite of -10 is 10. Okay, this part is a bit confusing, but if you can just remember that the first negative here, you just read as the opposite of -10, and you always get the positive. So this will always mean positive. All right, so now for the rest of the lesson and the rest of the topic here, you are just putting things in order. So they're going to give you, like, for example, this next one, they're going to give us a list of temperatures. It says, Riley recorded the temperatures for 5 days in January. Which day was the coldest day of Riley's data? Which was the warmest day? Write the temperatures from least to greatest. So write with me, we're going to make a little chart here. That's an M for Monday. There's Tuesday, there's Wednesday, there's Thursday, there's Friday. In here we've got -5 degrees Fahrenheit, -2 degrees Fahrenheit, 4 degrees Fahrenheit, -3 degrees Fahrenheit, and then 1 degree Fahrenheit. And there's our little chart. So what they want us to do is make a number line and plot these from least to greatest. So our smallest number is -5, our biggest number is 4. So I would just go, just like I did above, a -5 to 5 number line. So I'm gonna start here. -5, 4, -3, -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's positive 5. You can, if you want, write down each number for each hash mark. I feel like it gets really cluttered, so I just do it by 5s. But just know that this is -1, -2, -3, -4. This is 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? And when I go to plot my points, then I will put the actual number, right? All right, so for the first one, I have -5. Put my plot point here. This is -5 degrees Fahrenheit. The next one is -2, so I go over 1, 2. This is, I'm going to plot my point here. This is -2 degrees Fahrenheit. The next one is +4 degrees, so I'll go 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 4 degrees Fahrenheit. The next one is -3, so I'll go over 1, 2, 3. On the left-hand side, this is -3 degrees Fahrenheit. And the last one is +1, so 1 degree Fahrenheit. This, I go over 1. This is 1 degree Fahrenheit. And there, I've listed from least to greatest the temperatures for that week. And the question said, which was the warmest day? Well, then you just go to your number line and you figure out which plot point was the furthest to the right. And it's 4 degrees. So remember, just because the number is big, like the 5 here, if I take away any of the negative signs from it, 5 is the largest digit, but it's -5. So it's the furthest away from 0, right? So the farther we go on the number line to the right, the higher it is, the more value it is. In this case, it's temperature, so the hotter it would be. The more we go to the left, the colder it would be. Cool. The next one is takes the number line and flips it vertically. So now we're talking about depth. And there's JoJo making an appearance as always. So here's example 3. They give us 3... They give us 3 numbers representing like altitude, elevation, like the depth of something. You can describe many things, right? Electrical charges, temperature, like we just did. So let's take a look at these things. They give us airplane. The airplane is 10,000 feet. They give us sea level. Which is 0. I'm guessing this is feet. It doesn't actually, yeah, I'm guessing. Oh, it doesn't have a unit there. Feet might be too small, actually. I don't know. And then the whale in the ocean is at -10,000 feet. So then we do a vertical number line here. And that's the same thing as a regular number line, but just flipped up on its side. So I'm going to draw a line here, like that. And then you can label it, like this could be 0. And because we're going to such high numbers here, I'm not going to go by units of 1. I can maybe go by units of 5. Let's see. Or I can go by 1,000s, right? So 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000. Here's 5,000 feet. 6,000, 7,000, 8,000, 9,000, 10,000 feet. Same thing here. 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000. This is -5,000 feet. 6,000, 7,000, 8,000, 9,000, 10,000. This is -10,000 get that. There we go. So if they ask you, it doesn't, you don't have to do a vertical one, but if it helps you to visualize it, when you're dealing with, you know, the height and depth of something, then go for it. So then from here, we just plot our points, right? The airplane was 10,000 feet. So I can put airplane. Sea level was 0 feet. Pay attention to that because that will be an answer to one of the problems later on your Math Excel. The whale is swimming at negative 10,000 feet, so we can put whale like that. Sometimes they'll just give you a picture, and they'll put a picture of an airplane this high, and you have to figure out what the elevation is, the altitude is, I guess, is what with an airplane, and then yeah. So let's get a couple of these in here. They want to. So what they do is they give you a. So let's put 4. They'll give you a word, like I don't want to say a sentence, but they'll give you a word description of an integer, and you have to describe that integer, right? You have to put it into a number. So for example, a $10 debt. You're going to need to know what debt means. And debt means that you owe someone or somebody, like a company or something, $10. So if you had a $10 debt with me, or say, for example, one of the Girl Scouts or Boy Scouts or whatever are selling things, and I owe them $10. I would have a $10 debt. And so that means that I owe them $10. This would be represented as negative 10 for me. The next one is 6 degrees below 0. That one seems pretty obvious, especially because we have the number line over here. If I have 0 here and I go below, well, this is all negative numbers right below the 0. Positive numbers above, below sea level would be negative numbers, right? So if I have 6 degrees below, then that would be negative 6 degrees. But that was also, you could also do the same thing for the other number line here, because this is talking about temperature. And I'm going below 0. All right, let's wrap this up. Deposit of $25. If I deposit $25 into my bank account, did I add $25 or did I take away $25? Well, I'd added $25. So that's me adding 25 bucks to my account. So it's a positive number. I'm not taking away. You're going to get a lot of these types of coming up, or they just say write the opposite integer. So let's just do a few of these opposite integers because they're really fast. So if I'm doing the opposite of 1, well, that's going to be negative 1. If I'm doing the opposite of 30, well, that's going to be negative 30. If I'm doing the opposite of negative 11, well, that's just positive 11. What about 0? What's the opposite of 0? Well, if I'm on my number line here, and again, the opposite of 3 is 3 spaces from 0 on either side. So I've got positive 3 and I've got negative 3. Well, 0 doesn't have, 0 is the marker that we're using to figure out. So we're going 3 spaces from 0, 3 spaces from 0. So we're using 0 to mark where we're starting from. There is no opposite of 0, so I would just put 0 there. And then remember these ones here. The opposite of negative 8 would be 8. the opposite of negative 65, 65. Pay attention to these ones. They seem confusing. And then you'll get something like this, where it'll be like, list the integers in order from least to greatest. Please pay attention, because sometimes they might switch it and do from greatest to least, right? So they'll give you something like this. And you've got to put them in order from least to greatest. Just because this is a higher number, 8, doesn't mean it's has a higher value, right? So it's negative 8. That's actually the smallest one, because it's the furthest away from 0 to the left. Below 0, the left of 0. And then I'm just going to go in descending order there. So I'm going to go negative 7, negative 5, and then the biggest one here, the most value is positive 6. So the closer we get to 0 when they're negative numbers, the bigger they are. And then, of course, this is going on the right-hand side of 0, so that's the biggest one. I'm trying to think if there's any more that I need to help you out with. Again, if you have any questions, write down the question on a piece of paper, and then at 10:30, go to the tutoring and ask those questions. Okay? All right, good luck.